Welcome back. We're on to our next presenters. And so I'd like to invite Serhiy Kovela, David Roberts and Sheila Roberts to join me on the stage. So I'll just add you to the stream. And there's Sheila. Excellent. Well done. You made it. welcome all. I'll just briefly introduce you. So Dr. Serhiy Kovela is a practitioner, scholar and educator with over 23 years of experience in project management and business IT consulting and delivering training programs for executive audiences internationally and teaching students across the world, as far as I can see. He's an associate professor at the Northeastern University in London and chief value officer at Resilience Professionals Limited. Serhiy has got particular experience of some difficult changes in life. He lived through the collapse of the Soviet Union and the emergence of contemporary independent Ukraine. So I'm sure that will come into the presentation. David is a business owner, consultant and trainer who designs and delivers customized programs and best practice certifications for people worldwide in transformations, projects and business decision making. He runs his own company, QP International, which became the first APMG consultancy and training accredited organization in 2004. And since then, he's led strategy implementation, anticipating and adapting services to ever-changing client requirements. And Sheila is a consultant, trainer and examiner in program and project management and related areas. And she is CEO at QP International and chair of the industry training body Aspect. So welcome all. If you'd like to add to those introductions at all, and then launch your presentation, and I'll come back on screen when it's time for Q&A. So over to you guys.
Thank you. Is the presentation visible, just to make sure? No? Okay. Well, oh yeah, here it is. Great. Thank you. Okay, well, I guess enough's been said in terms of introductions. It's been a rather verbose preamble. I'm going to jump straight into the discussion. So I suppose it's no surprise to anyone that we are living in a world which is completely volatile, complex, ambiguous, and that is to say uncertain, right? Lots of crisis. Crisis rules the day, really, and the event that we're discussing here today is by no means an exclusion. It's rather a prominent example of what could be happening with people, to people, completely beyond their control, completely or very, very difficult to predict. So things do happen to us, and we still need to deliver good work. And so what we want to discuss here today is what delivering good projects might mean in the context of a crisis event like the Turkey-Syria earthquake. So just to set the context, south central Turkey, northwest Syria, very early in the morning, 4 a.m. So caught people completely off guard. Lots and lots of lives lost. Massive reconstruction efforts underway. And the priorities here are, or rather, so what does it mean? It means that there are multiple agencies engaged. This is a multinational response, which means complex. And there are two things to think about straight away. Immediately, it's the rescue, medical assistance, shelter, food. But then midterm to longer term, it's the recovery, rehabilitation, rebuilding, but importantly, future proofing, so future resilience. And so what we'd like to talk, and on the organizations, there's a plethora of organizations which take part in it, and there's both international partner organizations such as Oxfam, UNICEF, International Red Cross and Red Crescent, and so on and so forth, but also local organizations within Turkey and Syria. And I suppose all of that means that we have a multi-agency project or program, if you want to treat it like that. But it means that you need to make sure that the planning and coordination really works, that the right partners are engaged, the right tools and technologies are used to facilitate and enable certain activities, And also importantly, as I already said this, I'm going to say this many more times today, it's all about sufficient business resilience going forward to sustain delivering increasingly VUCA environments, VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and making sure that this type of event we are prepared for in the future. I mean, this one we just need to deal with the consequences. However, we know that unfortunately this type of event does occur from time to time, maybe not here, maybe somewhere else, maybe 2 days from now, maybe 50 years from now, but it will happen. So also we're talking about sustainability, i.e. making sure that whatever we do today impacts on whatever we might need to do tomorrow. So what's required? We need to ensure the sustainability of the process itself, coordination, pace, energy levels importantly, but also sustainability of outcomes. So potentially revised building standards, policies, and so on and so forth. And I suppose the bottom line here is that responding to a crisis event like this of such a magnitude and complexity, it requires both speed and flexibility in terms of deciding what to do now, what's the next thing after that. But also it requires tenacity, i.e. energy, to keep going, because one thing it is to do today, but it's another thing to keep going after some people have become tired, fatigued. Some help might be available, some might not be available. There are long-term consequences which need to be dealt with on an ongoing basis. That requires tenacity, that requires perseverance, i.e. energy. And so what we're going to talk about today is the business resilience framework and the practical templates we're going to present to you in order to facilitate such efforts. And without much further ado, I'm going to give the baton to David to talk about the framework itself. David, you're on mute.
Hi, can you hear me now, Serhiy?
Yeah.
Yep, great, thank you. Thank you very much for that energizing introduction. What I'd like to do now is just to step back very briefly and say, if we think about all of those different organizations that Serhiy mentioned in terms of a multi-agency response, every single one of them is working on a permanent basis, trying to build its own capabilities. We want to flick back to the other slide, Serhiy, trying to build their own capabilities as well as deal with the next crisis, and to do that at pace. So this business resilience framework is about building sustained progress delivered at pace. That's what all of these organizations need to do. In this session, we're showing you a 5-domain model. We're going to focus on the central parts, the resilience foundations, pace, culture, and progress cycle. On the basis that it's by developing these critical elements, organizations are able to really move rapidly, decisively, and effectively when they really need to do it. Let's just take a glimpse inside at these areas. If we start first of all with resilience foundations, this is something that the organization is going to be doing day in, day out. It needs to be mindful of the different elements that are shown here. So the regulatory and governance and evolving vision. What is it this organization is really setting out to do? And only when that is clear does it start to bring people into delivery of its operations, taking the right level of risk and leading and influencing. I won't go through all of them, but the point here is building resilience foundations is day-to-day work for all of these agencies. If we move on to the second area, we're looking at our people. How do we build strong teams? How do we build a strong organization? We've identified 4 areas that are really critical here. A purposeful mindset, applying tools, because tools on their own do nothing, it's their application, capability and skills, and with those elements being worked together, we can build up the energy that's needed for sustainability in challenging situations where things do not always go right and people need to find that capability inside themselves. And finally, when we think about a crisis striking in the way that Serhiy has just elaborated, it's vital that people know what's the process we're going to go through here in terms of deciding what's to be done in this situation and then how we're going to deliver it. So that's our progress cycle. Many organizations here will have their own project management models to do that. This is an adapted one that builds both resilience as well as delivery of a particular initiative. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Sheila, who's going to talk about how to adapt this model to the circumstance that Serhiy was referring to in the Turkish earthquake. Sheila.
Thank you. Thank you both. We need to make sure that our organisation is resilient to start with. However, when we're actually facing a crisis, there are three areas of this that come to the fore. Leading and influencing. Every team needs to understand the vision, how they're going to work together, and leaders need to facilitate their own people, but also influence others to make sure that we are delivering well. Influencing others needs network collaboration. Serhiy's already taken us through the network partners of the international organisations that are involved in the earthquake response. But it also needs innovation and risk. Every crisis situation is unique. You can't predict everything you're going to come across, so you need to innovate, but that needs to be balanced with risk. There's a huge amount of risk there already, and you don't want to be taking more risks than are needed. Some risk will always be needed, but you've got to balance it so that you're actually acting responsibly to deal with the crisis. So then if we look at the way that we would actually implement any initiatives, so we'll carry on to the next one, Serhiy. Yep. The progress cycle takes us through actually implementing the response. This should have been thought through as part of your response planning. However, it's absolutely needed when you're on the ground. So what is our definition of progress in this situation for the next period? Then what level of challenge are we facing? Not just about, is there going to be another tremor, but also the environment we're in and the capabilities that we've got, the capacity of people that we've got on the ground, and what opportunity do we have in terms of immediate life-saving, minimising injuries, and then carrying on to do what's needed following that. We sort things into the must-haves right now and the things that can take a little bit longer or be done in parallel. Teams are immediately mobilised, they're enabled, they're empowered, and that will lead to us making sure that we select the right approaches, but celebrate our successes as well, which leads us into the people part. And in our PACE culture, PACE is our purposeful mindset, application of tools, capability and skills, leading to elevated energy. The purposeful mindset is more than just being positive. It's understanding what we're all there for and believing we can make a difference. Having a growth mindset that allows us to take on all those new things. But the energy is so important because that will quickly be depleted in this situation and needs maintaining. So on to you, Serhiy.
Yep. No, it's for me. Sheila, sorry, thank you. So just very briefly then, when we think about applying this business resilience modeling, business resilience framework and adapting it, we're trying to do it throughout these organizations. And you can see here at the individual, team, department, agency, a partner network or government levels or all levels, we're trying to make sure that this mindset of a business resilience framework and what we need to invest in is present. So when we think about levels of investment, multi-agency working, many different levels, what they should have in common is a mindset towards building resilience. And with that, a belief that they can deliver sustained progress at pace. Serhiy, back to you, please.
Thank you. So on to the practical templates that you could use to implement aspects of this framework. So the first one is going to be the resilience readiness checker. So as we said, there are multiple organizations involved, and you've got lots and lots of individuals in working single-handedly in teams, divisions of organizations, but also governments. So what you really are looking at is a project, a massive project with lots and lots of different stakeholders. And as we know, stakeholder management is one huge area of delivering projects efficiently, which means in order to set the atmosphere for constructive collaboration where people help each other rather than getting on each other's toes, you need the right mindset. You need organizing principles in place, and it's all got to be done quickly, because often these matters are going to be politically charged and influenced. And so what you want to get is something to set the baseline in expectations on how people deal with things. And for those of you familiar with Agile PM approach, you might have seen something like that in project delivery approach questionnaire. But this is a version specifically geared towards focusing ones on resilience. So you've got these 5 basic domains of the business resilience framework: general principles, roles, foundations, operations, and culture. And basically, you've got a set of statements on which you need to agree as a team in order to set that level footing for everyone to start operating. And this works as an initial thing. Before you actually do anything else, you need to hold a workshop, a discussion, formal, informal, whatever it is, and use this to say, okay, everyone agrees to these principles. If there are people who disagree for one reason or another, that is a matter for very close investigation, because there would be things like conflicting interests or conflicting priorities. That needs to be sorted out from the outset, because otherwise you're facing potential crisis while dealing with the real crisis. Okay, so this particular template, it helps you to set the work off on the right foot. Okay, and the next one is going to be the one which is called prioritized initiative list. And again, people might be, who are familiar with Agile PM methodology, might see some similarity, which is by no coincidence, by the way. But the point here is this: you will be looking at doing multiple things at the same time. There are immediate relief actions, rescuing people, rendering medical support, psychological support, food, shelter, and so on, and sanitation, so on and so forth. There will be limited amount of resources that you can dedicate to every bit of work. And so you need to prioritize. I mean, just being pragmatic. With every single complex project, you have to prioritize, because you have little time, little resource, and you have to do all of those things at once. So, and here, specifically in a crisis environment, this might mean lives, literally lives. So what you want to do is you want to use one of those templates to basically say, we've listed everything we can think of right now, what needs doing. Now let's actually work together and prioritize. And you can use any of those popular prioritizing techniques, Moscow just being one of them for those agilists here. But you could be using anything that works. I mean, there's in the facilitation manual, there's like a dozen of them. So anything works, so long as you can agree on the order that you can actually attend to these initiatives too. And importantly, within this particular template, you will have partner value, resilience value, and progress definition. And so all that analysis boils down to is this: in the next progress cycle or in the next fixed time frame, what of those initiatives we're going to look at first, second, and third. And this is a living document, because you're going to be reprioritizing all the time. And so this is, again, yet another means, a very practical means of getting to a consensus on what needs doing next. And now over to Sheila on the business case.
Yeah, and we know a business case may not be a priority when you're responding immediately to a crisis, but as you move through, business cases will be needed. And it's important to decide what's going to be done, how it's financed. Done quickly may not be an initial priority in terms of finance for government. Small charities have all got limited pots. Other places may also provide some funding. So if we look at how we can use a business case that we've got already and make it more focused on resilience being embedded as well. A basic Prince 2 business case template. The summary, fine. Reason would be enhanced by putting the emerging vision. What's the future look like? The options would be enhanced by making sure we put in our progress definition and what will be included, and that would come under the chosen option. The expected benefits will include the opportunity assessment, and our opportunity assessment covers the confidence of delivery. How confident are we can actually achieve this? The risks balanced with innovation, because we've said already innovation and risk need to be balanced, and the costs, not just of money, but also by making sure we're investing in talent, making sure the talent is in there as well. And the timescales, so is it something rapid or is it something that could be done more slowly? So moving across now to David to talk about energy.
Thanks, Serhiy. So, sustaining delivery throughout the project, physically and mentally. I'm speaking now out to those people who work as project managers, really rather like being at the center of any initiative where you're trying to keep many stakeholders all aligned to what you're doing, because you desperately need their support in order to proceed. When you don't have their support or things don't go well, that's when we find out how much energy we've really got in the tank. So in that case, we can use things like the resilient energy assessment tool. This type of tool will quickly identify levels of either positive energy or comfortable energy or resigned energy, or indeed corrosive energy where people are working against you. We need to understand where our sources of support are and where we need to give additional support in order to make progress. So energy for leadership and for those who are part of teams is at the center of our actions. Serhiy, back to you.
Sheila?
Yeah. So the benefits of using the business resilience framework. This is really absolutely vital. And what we've done is we've identified, so what does that mean in Turkey and Syria for the earthquake response? One of the major benefits is a stronger linkage between strategy and execution. The strategy is get in, respond, save lives, help the situation. But what we also need to be thinking about in terms of resilience, this will help in terms of securing the rebuilding standards and making sure that they're actually implemented rather than talked about. Reduced cost and rework. This is a fail fast idea, isn't it? Making sure that what we're doing actually works. And that means we can do a modular response, we prioritize life saving, and we actually keep checking to see what works. Fail fast, but it means it works fast too. We get to the working bit. Operational effectiveness, rapidly optimizing to life save now and then rebuild later. We're not going to worry about rebuilding immediately. Increased productivity. This is vital because time means lives in these situations. And the first rescue response needs to be absolutely immediate and then work more to a program. Nurturing talent seems a strange thing in a crisis response, but people don't get the experience of how to respond and what's vital in those situations till they've done it. And we need to make sure they have the right opportunities so they can build that into future responses to crisis. And predictable delivery performance. Yes, we need to know whether we're actually going to be able to deliver this response and make sure that we not just meet expectations, hopefully we'll exceed them. We've seen that here in Turkey with increased numbers of rescues beyond likely timescales. The value is planning beyond our immediate rescue needs to anticipate the future rebuilding, and that will improve satisfaction and retention of that confidence by households and local and national governments. Serhiy.
So thank you, Sheila. So, well, in summary, we've just seen that the crisis is, the response to the crisis is a multi-agency, multinational effort, meaning complex, and therefore a resilient approach to coordinating, prioritizing, and delivering the rescue, recovery, and importantly, future resilience is really needed. And the presented business resilience framework, it can enhance the existing project and program management practice because, as you've seen, elements of Prince to elements of Agile, elements of other good practices are there. The approach is not throw away everything you've seen and done so far and do this other new bright shiny thing. The approach is take what you can, use when you need it, and that's that. And it's going to complement and extend and enhance your good practice. And importantly, agencies engaged in the relief effort can achieve greater level of efficiency, effectiveness, and impact using that. So just a final note really on that. So we've not covered much in this presentation because we haven't got much time. So we prioritized naturally, right? And so if you want to know more about it, I mean, there's a lot more said in the book itself. It's been recently published. So that's 150 years of collective experience of the authors, and there's a lot more interesting information in it. So it's available on Amazon and Cogent page, but also you can come to our next workshop at the Northeastern University. It's called Using Practical Tools to Improve Resilience of Your Projects in April, fairly soon. You can visit us on www.resilienceprofessionals.com, follow us on Twitter, and contact us by email if you need practical templates, if you need further advice, or you want to take that discussion any further. And I believe we're right on time to take more questions if you have any.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That was an intriguing presentation. We've got some comments and some questions in the chat, but I was going to kick off with a question for you. It's clear from what we've done today that the kind of environment in which you're working and disasters have a huge amount of emotion associated with them. And the framework that you've got is very intellectual, and I wondered how you square the tension between intellectual versus emotion, and how you address the emotional aspects of this whole process.
Who wants to take that?
I'll just kick off with that, if I may, Serhiy. So, Jonathan, the central part of what we have here is something around building foundations, something around delivering the initiative, but at the heart of it is the culture, the PACE culture. And it's only by strengthening individuals that we can help them both contribute towards and then also deliver in very difficult situations. I found myself in situations where I've been in front of groups of people working on projects, and then somebody says, I'm sorry, I can't come tomorrow. I've got to go to a funeral. It's for the project manager. He's written a suicide note to his colleagues and his wife. It's all got too much. I'm out of here. And that's how he's exited. We've got to see those sorts of stress levels coming, Jonathan. And we do that by investing in the mindsets of our people, as well as what they can do and contribute to the initiative. So absolutely vital to have that at the heart of what we're doing. It's what makes our approach much more distinctive, different, and relevant to these sorts of challenging situations.
That's a really good point, David. And I think that the energy levels that we've talked about reflect how people are feeling emotionally. Mm-hmm. So that's why the energy questionnaire is so useful in actually helping people make that assessment.
Right. Excellent.
And being an academic in this slot, I'll give you a slightly more theoretical formulation here. So it's definitely fairly theoretical because it's in the book. However, we lived through all these situations. All of us, we lived through these situations. We know how challenged they are. And therefore, we tried to actually amalgamate them and formalize them, at least to a degree, so that someone else could actually take a look at it and go, okay, I can now dissociate it from emotions for a second, and I can see the scheme behind it, the pattern. So I can actually use that in a number of situations moving forward. So that's the whole point of us talking about frameworks, because we want to make it a skeleton for practice, to have less skeletons, so to speak.
That's a terrible pun, Serhiy. Right. We've got a comment and a question here from Michelle. I think you can read that, can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's really talking about the value of analogy and the value of comparisons to natural systems and that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I
Do you
can
want
start.
me to?
Oh, sure. Of course. Yes, of course. Please do. Sure.
We were aware of his book and his considerations. The value of analogy, yeah, absolutely. I think it's valuable in all situations, and particularly when you think about the process of facilitating, which is really, really needed in any of these particular responses. Analogy can help you to get your message across, let people understand it, and pick up what's needed. Talking about it in terms of natural systems, ecosystems, it depends on what you're facing. If you're facing a natural disaster, people may take that as relating to exactly what you're dealing with. So just use the right one for the right situation.
Yeah.
I could also add to that I think the infinity loop is the analogy of what's going on around us and with us all the time. I mean, change never stops. It's always there. So what you have is you have a process which tries to put a little bit more, a little bit of order, a little bit of sense, if you will, sense of enable us to make some sense of all those things that are happening around us, and still being able to, do some good work, while we are battling with this ever-changing landscape, but not just react to it, but rather take charge through the disciplined, orderly conduct. We take charge of our future, at least to a degree, to the degree that we can.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent. And in terms of adapting to changing situations, how does the framework allow you to kind of continually revisit your assumptions about what's happening and about how people are feeling?
If I could just kick off with that, Jonathan. So the idea really is here that we started with a framework. In this one, you could see it was an 848 sort of model based on the progress cycle, the culture, and the foundations. But inside there are the component parts, which are the best practices and the tools that are to be used in each and every part. So the idea is to look at what do we have that's really performing and what's not. And then we replace those at a rate that the organization can put to test, observe what the result is, and then move on. That critically for us in all this process is it's got to have, if you like, a litmus test of building energy, bringing energy into the teams, not drawing it away and exhausting the team. So that's where we're really coming from. And I mean, Jonathan, it's a poignant note, but one of our team is not here on this call. They didn't make it. Okay, they were part of one of these project situations where they just get a heart attack and they don't make it back to the next event. We know the stress that's there, and it's very important that the organizations concerned are looking at the best practices that are associated with building up the individuals to be a successful team and to deliver their mission. And that's what we're here for. Yes, sir.
And as a small addition to what David just said, the progress cycle itself, it's a cycle by no accident. It reflects the nature of change that has happened to us. So what we're doing is we're assigning fixed timeframes, and within a fixed time frame, we want to define what's most important, what the opportunity and challenge are, where's the trade-off, and what you're going to do in this time frame to deliver viable results, which are going to reflect value for your business, both in terms of short and mid-term benefits, but also resilience for the long term. And then there comes the next time frame, and the next one after that, and the next one after that, and on it goes. And we continue to learn from each of those time frames. We revise our standards, we revise our process, we revise our assumptions, and every single time, the environment just drops something else, something new on our lap. We go, right, so how do we change to that? How do we adapt? Well, we do this. Oh, we stop doing that. Oh, there's something new that we need to bring in. So it's a never-ending process of adaptation. And as I said just a minute earlier, this never-ending process of adaptation is what we take charge of actively. I think the key point here is that it doesn't happen to us because we have nowhere to run. We're completely cornered, and we just give up, or basically, okay, so let's do something reactive. We are looking at it as an opportunity to do something good with ourselves and for other people. So every single time there's a need for change, this is also an opportunity for us, a challenge that needs to be overcome, and a benefit that needs to be, first of all, ideated, but then realized.
Okay, yeah, excellent. And I mean, you talked about some of the sectors and some of the types of organization that you're already using the framework with, or that you're planning to use the framework with. I wanted to ask you about what's been your experience so far. What's been the response? What's happened, basically?
Well, shall I start off? Yeah, the response we've had so far has been excellent. And we've looked at how this works with a number of organizations. We did a PMI presentation in December about retrospectively looking at what happened with the response of the German government to providing liquefied natural gas coming in through the seaports, and the accelerated project they did to create a port that could accept it because they didn't have any previously. And that demonstrated the use of the framework. We're really excited that organizations are actually reflecting the different parts of the framework.
I'll mention your example. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
No, carry on.
We also talked to one of the blue chip telecom companies in the US some time ago, and we presented the framework. We discussed all these practical implications, and what they said, we have no choice but to start implementing, and we'll start with culture, because going back to the the well-known saying, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." I mean, that's exactly what comes through when you look at these things, and we realize that without good norms and behaviors, and people being on the same page, the purposeful mindset for that matter, nothing happens. You can have best possible tools, best possible skills, and perhaps a little bit of energy or no energy, but it's not going to go anywhere without the sense of the purpose. Yeah.
So certainly, it's probably just worth also saying that even in other industries, pharma industry, suddenly resilience is a level item. They have a chief resilience officer. They're meeting with staff on a weekly basis. They know they need to do things differently if they're going to be able to handle the sort of challenge that COVID presented.
So, I think people have finally woken up to the fact that long-term investments, which the investment in resilience definitely is, these type of long-term investments are really necessary, because before that people would go, oh, I'm going to spend all this money on that, and that's going to hit my profit margin in this quarter, and that's my personal bonus. So excuse me, but I'm not doing that. These days, the organizations have woken up to the fact that the short-termist outlook is extremely detrimental. It could be actually completely, it could kill the companies. People have started talking about these things all over the place these days. So it applies across the board. I suppose that's the short version of the answer. It applies across the board.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That was wonderful. Time is up. So thank you all for that. We're going to move into another networking session, and then we're going to come back in let me just check my timetable. We're going to come back at 16:35 for Liz Hector, who is our third speaker. So thank you again. I enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan.